Before B.B. King became one of the most respected guitarists in music history, he was a young musician searching for a way to make his voice heard. His journey from humble beginnings to international fame is often told as a simple story of talent and success. But there was another side to that journey, one shaped by persistence, constant learning, and the enormous expectations that came with becoming an icon. What did B.B. King have to overcome before audiences around the world recognized his name? And why did his approach to the guitar become so different from almost everyone around him? To understand the man behind the famous guitar, we have to go back to the beginning, when B.B. King was still discovering what music could become. Born Riley B. King in Mississippi in 1925, he grew up surrounded by the sounds of gospel and blues. Music became more than entertainment. It became a way of expressing ideas and emotions that words could not always capture. As a young man, King eventually made his way into the world of radio and live performance, where he began developing the skills that would define his career. But becoming a respected musician was not an overnight process. King spent years performing, learning, and refining his sound. He understood that the guitar did not always need to play constantly. Sometimes, a single carefully chosen note could say more than a page of complicated playing. That idea became one of his greatest strengths. His famous guitar, Lucille, became closely connected with his identity, but the instrument was only part of the story. B.B. King developed a highly recognizable style built around expressive bends, controlled vibrato, and space between phrases. Instead of filling every moment with notes, he allowed the music to breathe. Few people noticed how revolutionary that simplicity could be. During the 1950s and 1960s, King steadily built a reputation through recordings and relentless touring. His audience continued to grow, and eventually his music reached far beyond the traditional blues community. Rock musicians began listening closely to him, and guitarists from different generations discovered that his playing could teach something that technical speed could not. As his reputation expanded, however, so did the expectations. B.B. King was no longer simply an individual guitarist. He had become one of the faces of the blues itself. Every performance carried the weight of that reputation. What happened next changed his place in music history. King began reaching audiences who might never have explored traditional blues on their own. He performed alongside major artists from different musical backgrounds and demonstrated that blues could communicate across generations and genres. His influence became especially clear among rock guitarists. Players who developed much heavier or faster styles still looked back to King for lessons in phrasing and expression. Eric Clapton, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Gary Moore, and countless others admired the emotional clarity of his playing. But perhaps the most interesting part of B.B. King's legacy is that he never needed to prove his ability through complexity. His strength came from knowing exactly when to play, and when not to. That philosophy separated him from many technically impressive guitarists. King understood that a guitar could almost speak. His phrasing had pauses, responses, questions, and answers. Each note seemed deliberately chosen. Over time, B.B. King became more than a blues guitarist. He became a bridge between generations of musicians. His work helped bring the blues into wider popular culture while preserving the musical language that had shaped him. The overlooked side of his story is therefore not about a hidden scandal or sensational secret. It is about the discipline required to carry an entire musical tradition while still remaining an individual artist. By the later stages of his career, King had become a symbol of authenticity, patience, and musical expression. His influence reached guitarists who played styles that sounded completely different from his own, yet they could still hear his fingerprints in the way they approached a phrase. B.B. King's greatest lesson may have been surprisingly simple. Great guitar playing is not always about how much you can play. Sometimes it is about making one moment matter. That is why his legacy continues to feel so powerful. He did not simply master the blues. He showed generations of musicians how much personality could exist inside a single note. And perhaps that is the side of B.B. King that deserves the most attention. Behind the legendary name was a lifelong student of music, an artist who kept listening, learning, and refining his voice. His guitar did not need to shout to be remembered. It simply needed to speak, and generations of musicians learned how to listen.